comment. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Please confirm that you can hear me loud and clear. Maybe you could just put it in the chat box that you can hear me, so that we can just start the session for today.
Hello, can you talk out a bit?
Oh, okay. That's good morning. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. Thank you.
Okay. So I was trying to confirm if you can hear me. So I think I would like if some of our personnel could just put it in the chat box that they can hear me loud and clear. Just that we are sure. Okay. So we have Olua Bukumi confirm that she can hear me. Okay. So on the sliders, I think the slide has disappeared. Okay. So good morning, or would I say good day to every one of us. I welcome everyone officially to our event, the Postgraduate Scholarship Fair organized by SPE Lagos section. I'm particularly grateful to all our participants that have joined us today and for our resource persons that are joining us from different parts of the world. Like Odion earlier mentioned, we have somebody that is joining us from the US and it's about 3 a.m. over there. So I'm very happy that we have this turnout and we have people that are joining us. To not waste time, I would like to just move on and introduce myself. Odion, next slide, please. So my name is Tosin Akinde Peters. I'm currently the Assistant Scholarship Chairperson for SPE Lagos, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. And today we have 4 different speakers. We have a keynote speaker, we have 3 panelists, and our keynote speaker will be joining the panel session. So we'll have about 4 people joining the panel session. We have gathered a number of questions today to have a very robust discussion with our speakers today so that everybody has 1 or 2 things to pick up from the event. Quick notes to our participants, we want this to be a very interactive session, right? So we're hoping that you have questions to ask and you can just use the chat box. Very quick and very easy. I'll be checking the chat box on a regular basis to see any new questions that may have popped in, right? So please always take, if you have a question, before you forget, just put that in the chat box. Now, for the schedule for today, next slide. So I've started the welcome, that's just about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to take a safety brief, something really quick, and then we'll have our section chairperson, Mrs. Priscilla, give an opening remark, and then we'll move on to the keynote speech. I'll quickly introduce our keynote speaker, and then our keynote speaker, Mr. Victor Agboga, is going to take over and take us through his keynote speech. And after that, I'm going to introduce the panelists, and then we'll dive into the panel session. Like I initially mentioned, we want this to be interactive. So after this, we start taking questions from our participants and have these discussions with them. And then we have announcement, just a few things just to share with the entire team. And then we're going to have vote of things to just sort of end the day. So let's quickly start with the safety brief. Audio, next slide. So my safety brief today is probably something we probably all know about. It's centered around office economics, right? And this is just referring to, the way we sit, like you can see right now, sitting in the office, the way we should make use of our chairs, a certain rule called the 20-20-20 rule. So basically, if you're sitting behind the desk for a number of time, there's a potential that you can have neck injuries, back pain, eye strain. All these things are pretty common. And, there are just few tips we could just share with ourselves to just sort of reduce the risks of having some of these pains or strains in our body. So it's best to choose a chair that sort of supports your spinal cord, right? Make sure that it's of the correct height, make sure that it's of the correct distance from the screen. In addition to that, you should also ensure that if you are sitting on a chair, you have enough space under your desk for your legs, to stretch your legs, to have enough room for your legs to just move. In addition to that, there's something called the 20-20-20 rule. I don't know how many of us know that. But what the 20-20-20 rule is all about is that for every 20 minutes that you are directly looking at a screen, you should look at an object that is about 20 feet away for 20 seconds. It's just a simple rule of thumb that should just help you reduce the risk of eye strain for you. So because of time, I would like to just move on to our next agenda. Odion, can you just quickly move on? And then I would like to just welcome Mrs. Priscilla Nwere. She's the section chairperson for SPE Lagos. She's going to be giving us a rather brief opening remark so that we can just officially start our event for today. Mrs. Priscilla, can you please just...
Thank you, Tosin. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining this event today. I'm not going to take much of your time. I just want to use the opportunity to thank our resource persons for taking time out of their busy schedule to honor our invitation. And I thank everyone who's taking time out to join this event today, where we'll be sharing information about opportunities that are available for graduate studies. So I believe that we have the resource persons that will do justice to all the questions that you may have, right? So I want to thank them, and I want you to open your mind, ask all the questions that you have, and enjoy this next 45 minutes to 1 hour. It's going to be a time well spent with us. Thank you for continuously supporting SPE Lagos activities. I implore you to keep following us on all social media platforms to engage with us and to get updates on all of the programs that we'll be dishing out. SPE Lagos turns 50 this year. So please stay glued to all our pages so you get updates on all the information and activities that we have planned for our 50th anniversary. Thank you, everyone, and I wish you a very enjoyable session. So, back to you. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you very much, Madam Section Chair. And so like she said, SPE Lagos is 50 this year. We have a whole lot of events planned. So just follow our social media pages and engage with us. I would like to just move on to our keynote speech. Today, our keynote speaker is the person of Mr. Victor Agboga. And I would like to just read his bio so that we are very well versed with his background. Victor Agboga has a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy from Imo State University, Nigeria. He has a master's degree in African development from the London School of Economics and Political Science. He has a Master of Arts in Global Governance and Development from the University of Dortmund, Essen in Germany. His research interest revolves around African politics, human security, international development, and African political economy. He's presently a PhD student at the Politics and International Studies Department at the University of Warwick, UK, and also works as a graduate teaching assistant in the department. He's won numerous scholarships, including the Standard Bank Chairman Scholarship, DAD, or DAD, I don't know the correct spell, but yeah, Mo Ibrahim PhD studentships, PIS PhD studentship, and a whole number of international research grants. He also posts educational videos on his YouTube channel that currently has over 50,000 subscribers in his free time. Mr. Victor, I think at this point, I would just like to welcome you to start your keynote speech. Thank you very much again for honoring our invitation. And I'll just let you take over at this point.
Well, thank you very much, the organizers. And I hope you can hear me clearly.
Oh, yeah, yes, I can hear you clearly, yeah.
Oh, that's great. I'm happy to be here. So good afternoon, everybody. It's still morning over here, but we're getting to the afternoon as well. So 20 minutes for a keynote speech. I hope I have enough content or enough things to say. But I think when it comes to scholarships, there are lots of things to say, and you can't even, time is never sufficient to talk about scholarships, to be honest. So let's go straight into it. Let me get my notes. Yes, the first issue I'd like to talk about is something that is quite trendy, and is that scholarships are not visa lottery schemes. If you're a Nigerian, you're probably aware of the Jackpot wave. There's people moving out of the country to look for better opportunities, maybe caused by low economic growth, high unemployment, and political instability and things like that. So there's this movement out of the country to look for better opportunities, which is not bad in itself, I must say. It's a good thing. That's the history of humanity. People migrating to look for better ways to support their livelihoods. That's just our history as human beings, not just as Nigerians. But then if you're going through the scholarship route, it's a little bit different. You have to have a little bit of a different mindset. And what I mean here is you have to put the horse before the cart and not the cart before the horse. When I was applying, it was even before the Jackpot wave, although I had plans of migrating out of Nigeria as well. But that was not the first thing on my mind. The first thing on my mind was academic pursuit, academic interest, because I knew that when I'm submitting my documents, the admissions committee and the scholarships committee will be looking at what is his motivation for applying for this course? What are his future prospects? Is he a good student or a good fit for our department and things like that? That is what they'll be asking, and not whether he wants to leave his country or not. If you get the point I'm trying to make. So if you concentrate on submitting quality documents, putting forward competitive application, the migration part will come eventually. So there's this Bible saying that says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and every other thing will be added unto you. So if I can borrow from that, in the scholarship world, seek ye first academic excellence and every other thing, whether it's migration, better standard of living, will come after it. But what I see most times is that people are often putting migration first, even with the questions I get with the DMs, the inquiries. And you say 90% of them, I can't even respond to them because I think what they need is a visa expert or a travel agent than a scholarship coach or mentor, because they just want to travel. I'm like, oh, what is the easiest scholarship I can apply for so I can live with my family as soon as possible? So these are the kind of inquiries I get. I'm like, oh, I think you're doing it the wrong way. So scholarships are not visa lottery schemes. And the truth is that for many scholarships, when you get it, it becomes even easier to move. For a scholarship, for instance, like the Commonwealth, provided by the British government, they help you with your visas. You do not have to pay any visa fee. You don't have to pay even flight tickets, insurance. They take care of everything for you. So at the end of the day, your duty is just to try as much as possible to beat the competition and get one of the slots. Immediately you do that, migration becomes a child's play. The same thing with the DAD scholarship. It's often said that it's very difficult to get an appointment with the German embassy, to even if you have your money to study as a student in Germany. But once you get the DAD scholarship, your visa fee is waived. You're given preferential treatment at the German embassy. And anything you spend on flights and transport costs is reimbursed at the end of the day. So the argument here is, if you concentrate more on getting the scholarships than just on migration issues, the migration opportunity will eventually come when you eventually get the scholarship. So the admonition is, put as many as a possible application out there and make sure they are substantial application, competitive application, and eventually I think the opportunity will come. So you just have to position yourself properly by doing your due diligence and concentrating on academic interest, concentrating on how to put forward the best statement of purpose, how to outshine the other competition, the other people trying to apply. So I often see scholarships like a bag of money put on the road and several people are running towards it and not everybody will get it. So it means you have to be competitive. Look for what will give you a competitive edge. So if it is speed, if it is your ability to push people out of the road to get that bag of money, just do what you can to get it. And then when you get it, you'll be fulfilled and you enjoy the benefits. So for the sake of scholarships, try as much as possible to see the things that will give you a comparative advantage over other applicants. I think nobody would just want to gift you $100,000 or whatever currency or in the first place. So concentrate on putting forward a competitive application. So what are these application documents in the first place? So they are basic documents you will need to have to apply for international scholarships. And these might differ depending on the scholarships you're applying for. But then there are some documents that are required by almost every scholarship, regardless of where you're applying to, regardless of which country or which department. There's some general documents, and I'll probably run you through them as quickly as I can. So the first document here is an international passport. You might be surprised that why is an international passport part of the academic documents? Well, it is not an academic document, of course, but most universities will want you to prove your nationality while applying. And if you do not have an international document or an international passport, then how do you prove your nationality? You might have run into a problem while filling the application form of most universities that I've applied to. They require some form of official identity, and the document they often ask for is for international passport. For me, the day I got my international passport was the official beginning of my scholarship search. I think that was in 2016, I believe. And the next year, 2017, I got my first scholarship. I remember then it took a while to actually save up to actually get that international passport. Unfortunately, I met a good person who was able to fast track my passport as well, even without paying additional fees. So when I got that passport, that was like the official beginning of my scholarship hunt. Because before then, I used to say scholarships, and when I get to the scholarship portal, when they asked for international documents and passport number, I just stopped filling the form. I'm like, oh, I have not gotten the passport yet. So as small as that document is, it's like it's your first entry into accessing international opportunities. So if you're interested in scholarships, international scholarships, and you do not have your passport yet, please try as much as possible to get one. Try as much as possible to have your passport in hand, and that will mark your official beginning of your scholarship search. And of course, you need your university transcripts. That's your results, what you got from first year to your final year. And your results speak for you. Why I wouldn't say the scholarships are just for first-class students. I know a lot of people with 2-1 who have gotten scholarships, lots of people with 2-2. I've heard somebody got it with a third class, but I'm not sure. I'm not saying no friends, even at my university, who got the likes of Chevening scholarships or even assist in the US with a 2-2. So try as much as possible to have a good result. It's always a good thing. If you can get a distinction, why not? It also always puts you in front of the line, even though a result is not the only thing they look at. But it carries a lot of weight most times. It gives you some points. So if it's a point-based assessment, probably a first class will have like maybe 5 points. A 2-1 might have like 3 points. You understand what I mean? So a good result will always help you. But if you do not get a first class, do not be despaired, because there are lots of people out there without first class that got good international scholarships. Just try as much as possible to nail that part, get a good result. It always helps. Then there is this certificate statement of results. Well, for me till now, I've not received my certificate from my university. I don't know why. Certain Nigerian universities are very slow at issuing certificates. I don't know why that is the case. Fortunately, the universities have applied to accept statement of results in place of certificates, and I've been able to table that as well. So if you can lay your hands on your statement of results, I remember emailing one of the universities telling them that, oh, my certificate is not ready that I got, apart from my transcripts, and they accepted that in lieu for the certificate. So you could do the same as well. Try as much as possible to get your statement of results. I think it's much more easier to get because you need your statement result for other things like NYSC, I believe. So it's easier to get than a certificate. So you could utilize that as much as you can. Then there's a document called the statement of purpose. Sometimes they call it motivation letter. What they want you to do here with this document is to state why you want to study in this university, why this course, how does it align with your background? That's what you've done in the past, probably your work experience, your volunteer experience. And how does it align with your future goals, your aspirations? So after this course, what do you intend to do? Then here you are meant to show that you've done your background research about the course and the university. And they want you to write specifics. So for instance, if you apply to a particular university and they ask you why, mention particular facilities that you think they have, mention particular professors you think you want to work with. It means you must have done your background research, must have Googled these professors, read their profile, read the university ranking, they want to see that you've done your research. They're not just applying to them randomly in the first place. So remember why you apply to the university. How does it align with your interests? What problem do you intend to solve? How will that university help you, or that course help you solve that problem? Your future goals, how does the skills you intend to acquire, how would it help you with your future goals and aspirations? So there are lots of interesting samples out there actually on the internet. one good thing about scholarships is that compared to 5-6 years ago when I started applying, there are lots of information out there. I think there's no excuse these days saying that I can't find a scholarship and I can't find materials to apply. A simple Google search will show you thousands of samples of a statement of purpose. But make sure you do not copy, because when you copy and paste, that's plagiarism, and that's also a problem. For some admission committees I know, if you cut for plagiarism, of course, you're automatically disqualified, and you're even barred from applying in future as well. And they might not tell you this. So you might say, oh, they didn't accept me this year, and you go and apply next year, and they still do not accept you. Maybe 3 years, 2 years later, you still apply and still do not accept you. Probably the case that they barred you because you did plagiarism some years back. So try as much as possible to use internet samples only as a guide and not to copy and paste. So you do not blacklist yourself and shoot yourself in the foot before your journey even began. So there's lots of samples online. Look at them, and you'll be fine. Then letters of recommendation. This is also a very tricky one because it's a document you do not produce by yourself, but you need to rely on other people to produce it for you. Worked with you as well. Some departments or some scholarships might ask for professional references as well. So apart from your academic reference, they might ask you, I know that, for instance, some DAD scholarships, like the one I got, asked for at least one professional reference. That's from the place I worked. And so I got one from a professor and one from my former supervisor. The trick here is that try to at least have some people in your department, some lecturers who will be ready to write recommendation letters for you, or people at your place of work. And that's why it is important to build a rapport. So when you meet them for recommendation, they won't say, oh, I didn't write about you. Another trick is we're often not very confident in our professors writing recommendation letters for us, not because they cannot do it. Oftentimes they're quite busy, or they have this generic format where you just put your name there and maybe put your basic data and just submit it. So if 10 people come to this particular professor, he has the same letter for everybody, just change the name and basic information. And letters like that are quite very general and not specific enough. So what can you do about this? While asking for the recommendation letter, you could tell them things they could add to the letter. In fact, there was a professor that asked me to actually write the letter myself, then send it to him, then he vetted the letter, then signed it and sent it off. Because a number of scholarships or departments will want the professors to send it directly to them and not you sending your own recommendation letters or your own reference letters. So what you can do, if the professor is too busy and you want this particular professor to write it for you, you can tell him that, oh, you have a sample, and then write your own recommendation letter, but write it in the third person. That third person means you put yourself as he said this, or she did this, she did that, and then give it to the professor to read. And his own duty is just to confirm that what you said in the recommendation letter is true, and then append the signature and help you send it. Another thing is, another problem I think people run into is that most universities require students to give it to professors who have official email addresses. So not Gmail or Yahoo Mail or Hotmail or the rest of them. The email address should be attached to your university of origin. So that's unilag.ng or at UI, things like that, not a free random email address. I remember when I was applying for one of the scholarships, one of my professor's official email wasn't working. And I needed that professor to actually write because he was my supervisor for my undergraduate dissertation. So he just had to be the one to write. I had to spend money to get him a domain name so he could get a customized email address to actually send this application, because he sent it through, I think, Hotmail or something. And the university sent it back to me. That was the London School of Economics. Sent the letter back and said, this email address is not recognized. So the reference letter sent from this email address will not be recognized. And I'm happy they sent that thing back to me, because if they just kept quiet but rejected the recommendation letter, I would have thought that it was accepted. And that would have probably affected my application and scholarship prospects. So it's a good thing they alerted me and said, oh, this email address is not recognized. He has to use an official email address. So I have to spend a bit of money to try to rectify that problem and give my referee an official domain with the school ID and everything, official email. And then he sent it and it was accepted. So you want to put all these things in mind. Some universities would clearly state this, others will not clearly state it. So just be careful and make sure you have this in mind while thinking about recommendation letters. Another good thing is that there are lots of samples of recommendation letters online. So if you want to write yours and then send it to your supervisor or former professor to vet, you can always see samples online. Remember not to copy and paste, only use them as a guide. I would say if I'm writing my own recommendation, like the last one I wrote actually was 1.5 pages. And I think usually 1 page to 1.5. Make sure you do not be too humble when you're writing your own recommendation, if that makes sense. Because this is a competition. There are people there who are writing excellent recommendations. And that small differences between recommendation letters might just be what would get one student an extra edge. Imagine you have like similar academic qualifications, similar work experience, and they're now looking for the tiebreaker. Your recommendation letters might just be the tiebreaker. So if you just submit 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs, you might just get no points. And the other person who gets a 1-page recommendation or 2 pages might just be the person that will get the extra points and win the scholarship in the first place. So every document, try to put your best foot forward as much as possible. Then there's some other things you might have to submit depending on the scholarships. Some will ask you to send writing samples. Sometimes you might be asked to send a portfolio. I know those in architecture, those in engineering sometimes. The constructive industry sometimes are asked to like send maybe blueprints of their previous research. I know my brother does beauty technology, and most times when he's applying for things, they said, okay, let's see some of the work you've done in the past. So it depends on the department as well. There's also the issue of, I hope I still have a little bit of time. There's also the issue of a cold email. So a cold email is an email you send to a professor looking for funding opportunities in his or her department or lab, as the case may be. And this is a little bit tricky as well. It depends on the scholarship you're applying for, it depends on the country, it depends on the university. For instance, if you're applying for a master's scholarship, like the Chevening or the DAT or the, what do they call them, Commonwealth, you do not need to contact any professor in the department. So you wouldn't have to send a cold email because the funding is not from the professor. It's not even from the department in some cases. For those ones, yeah, it's good to know the professors of the department so you can write their names, like the key ones you think you want to work with in your statement of purpose. But sending them a cold mail will not make any difference. But in a country like the US, for instance, almost every university, not every, but almost, require you to like contact a professor beforehand and tell them about your academic background, tell them about how you want to work with them, ask them for possible spaces in their lab, in their department, for opportunities for assistantships. And the reason why it is like that in the US and probably Canada as well is because most funding for graduate students are assistantships. Assistantships meaning you'll be working for a particular professor, is as a teaching assistant, a research assistant, administrative assistant. So you have to pitch yourself to that professor, and then the professor has to like give you the green light before you then go and apply for admission. So it's very good to know the distinctions between the different kinds of scholarships and whether they need cold email or not. What you can do if you're not sure is to just send an email to the graduate coordinator or the department secretary and say, hey, no, there's no information on your website on whether I should contact a professor or not beforehand. So what do you think? I have a number of professors I think I want to work with, but I'm not sure if I need to contact one beforehand and get the approval before I apply. And make sure you do this beforehand, way before the deadline, so you have enough time to get response to your inquiries. Usually you get response. Most of these universities are very good at responding to applicants' queries and information and inquiries. So please do that so you're clarified. So you do not send cold email to a department that doesn't accept cold emails. So I've said it happen a number of times. People sending cold emails to the wrong department or not sending cold emails when they're supposed to send it. And then they're left out of the opportunities. So there are lots of other documents we can look at, but this is like a quick rundown. And as I said, there are lots of internet guides, lots of samples online that you could use. Quickly, where do you find information about scholarships? I think my first go-to place is university websites. I remember 5-6 years ago, I would just go to a random university and start checking their funding page to see what they have. Because not every scholarship is advertised, not every graduate position is advertised. And those who do their due diligence, just take the initiative to search, might just stumble on things that others might not find. And that might just be your own breakthrough. So I think you should just, your free time, just do research. You can just Google key universities offering human geography in the US. Then they give you a list of universities. Then you go through them, check the departments, check the funding page, and see if they have funding for international students, see if they have assistantships. And before you know it, you have a list of universities that you can apply to. Other times, social media is also a very good place. I'm very happy now that lots of people now are sharing lots of opportunities online. Ex-scholars, present scholars, professors themselves. So there are lots of information here. When people come to me and tell me they can't find scholarships, I think it's often the case that they've not done the right search, or they do not follow the right people on social media, because there are lots of opportunities every day. In fact, anytime I open Twitter, there's often somebody announcing a particular scholarship, either in Australia, in the US, in Germany, in China, in the UK. So there are lots of opportunities here. I think it's often even a case of opportunity overload, if you ask me. We didn't have it this good 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So please take advantage. Lots of things flying about. Do your due diligence, and then probably have a notebook or even online. Have a list of universities, why you want to go to them, and your strategies, the documents they require. I know a number of people who have like spreadsheets of these are the 10, 20 universities I'm going to, and this is my strategy. This is the documents they need, and they plan the application deadline as well is written there. So it's a systematic process for opportunities we find around. Then I think I'm almost done. Let me just see the final one. Rejections. Yes, rejections. Rejections are part of the process. There are a number of people who get it in their first try, but this is a minority, to be honest. It's a minority of people who get it just in their first try. A number of us tried a number of times before we got it. And the good thing about scholarships is that when you get one, it's easier to get another one because you've been able to prove yourself once that you've been able to get one scholarship. So when you apply for another one, it becomes easier. So rejection is part of the process. I get a number of people who get dispirited after they get rejected for one and they're like, oh, I can't apply anymore. I think it's part of the process. You might be among the lucky ones who get it on their first try. Congratulations if you do, but I didn't get it on my first try. And imagine if I've given up in my first try, all these other ones that came after I wouldn't have gotten them as well. So just persist, strategize as well. Make sure you're applying to a university or a department that also needs you. So through making inquiries with them, through clarifying that you qualify, through making sure that you meet their requirements, that might also help to reduce your rejection chances. Of course, there are times where you tick all the boxes, but you still do not get in, and such is life. Just persist at the end of the day. And I think it is on this message of persistence that I will end my keynote address. And of course, looking forward to your questions and discussions subsequently. So thank you very much. And I'm still here. I'll be sticking around. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Victor. Can everybody hear me? Should I just... Can everybody hear me, please? Mr. Victor, can you hear me? Okay, cool. So yeah, I want to even say a big thank you because your keynote speech was very robust, right? In fact, I feel like you have answered most of the questions we have already, but we're going to dive into sort of some specifics. We're going to try to leverage each of our speakers' personal experiences, right? Like you have mentioned, not everybody gets that first time, but I want to hear from everybody, want to get their experiences, get 1 or 2 tips from everybody so that we can just put all of these things together and learn from all of it. Audion, please, can we have the slide up back so that we can just move? Cool, because I can see that it is sharing. So now that we're done with the keynote speech, now we're moving on to the panel session. So like I earlier mentioned, we have 4 speakers. Our keynote speaker is going to be joining 3 other speakers, Mr. Yabrifa Depre, Dr. Samuel Jemima, and Mr. Oluwatobi Raji. So without any further ado, I'd like to just read their bio to everyone so that we just understand or know their backgrounds. So Mr. Yabrifa Depre is a graduate of petroleum engineering from Niger Delta University. He obtained an MSc in integrated petroleum engineering and production studies from the Shell Center of Excellence in Geosciences and Petroleum Engineering. After that, he served as a graduate intern at Lake Oil Limited. In addition to this, he has also obtained another MSc in the field of artificial intelligence, AI, from Erasmus University, UK, sponsored by the Petroleum Technology Development Fund, PTDF. He currently works with the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, NCDMB. Other notable awards and achievements that he has he served as chapter president, program chairperson, membership chair for SPE Niger Delta. So he's a real SPE member, right? So he won the 2015 SPE Drop Scholarship Award. Most of us that are SPE members know what this is. He was an African representative of SPE International Petrol Bowl in Dubai, 2016, recipient of Biasa Rose Award, and he enjoys coding and playing football in his free time. Jemima Samuel is a reservoir engineer with British Petroleum in the UK currently. She has a PhD in reservoir simulation runtime optimization from Imperial College London. She also has an MSc in petroleum engineering from African University of Science and Tech, Abuja, and has a BEng, that was Bachelor of Engineering, Chemical Engineering from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Her previous job experiences with Imperial College London, Nile University of Nigeria, Abuja, and CSR in Action, Lagos. She's always passionate about sharing her career and STEM experiences to inspire others. She enjoys hands-on activities, including art, coding, cooking, and sightseeing. So for our last speaker, Mr. Oluwatobi Raji is an energy science and engineering MS student at Stanford University in the US, currently working with both Professor Anthony Kovzek, I'm sure I did not pronounce that well, and Professor Louis Dolowski. Is currently interested in the development of sustainable and clean energy supply and is conducting research on carbon storage and sequestration. That's very interesting. Prior to joining Stanford, he had worked for a short stint in the tech industry as a product manager. He completed his Bachelor's of Science degree in Petroleum and Natural Gas Engineering from the University of Lagos, Nigeria, where he graduated top of class and interned with Shell in Nigeria. In his leisure time, Oluwatobi likes to hang out with friends, try new recreational sports, and travel. So these are four speakers that will be joining us today. Can you please move on to the next slide, John? Yes, okay. So now we're about to enter the panel session, right? And today we're trying to paint a picture. The questions we're trying to answer, we can see them on the screen. What are the programs that we should apply to, right? How do we choose the schools to apply to? What are the certain requirements? How do I fund this? These are the key questions that, from experience and gathering intel from people. People want to understand how they can pick the programs they want to apply to. What schools should they apply to? What are the requirements and how do they fund it, right? Before we dive in, I just want to quickly remind everyone that please, as we're going on through the conversation, if you have any question, drop it in the chat box. I'll be checking very regularly to see if any new questions have popped in. And without any further ado, I'd like to invite our speakers to please share their video, if that's convenient, so that we can just see ourselves as we're conversing. So, Mr. Victor, Mr. Oluwatobi is already, Mr. Oluwatobi, Jemima, and Mr. Yabrifa. So yeah, okay, yeah, I can see Mr. Oluwatobi, your video isn't shared yet, but I think we'll just start right now. So I want to, we're going to start with a very generic question first, and I want everybody to sort of give their own answers. And first question is, for your grad program, what scholarship particularly did you get for that program? Because we have seen that there are various scholarships available, research assistantships, teaching assistantships, popular scholarship like MasterCard, local funds like PTDF. So I want everybody to just go in. I'll be calling each of us. And I would like to start with Mr. Oluwatobi. Can you just quickly just talk to us, please?
Yeah. So for the opportunity I got, it was a research assistantship. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, so it was a research assistantship. So that was the opportunity that funded my studies here.
Okay. Mr. Victor, I think you have numerous scholarships. I don't know.
Yes, presently I'm on a department studentship. That's what we call it. Well, previously I've gotten the Standard Bank Africa scholarship that Commonwealth, but I didn't go for Commonwealth because it's clashed with another one. And then an assistantship in the US, and now this one, a studentship in the University of Warwick.
That's very impressive. That's very, very impressive. Ms. Samuel or Ms. Jemima, I know you have a PhD, or you have a PhD from a private college. What scholarship exactly did you get for that?
Okay, so I actually did a study through an Imperial College studentship. So basically my supervisor got the grant and then it funded my studies. But if you do a Google search, you may actually find out that I had the PTDF scholarship. I just didn't use it. Well, yeah.
Oh, okay, very interesting. And last but not the least, artificial intelligence major. What scholarship did you get, Mr. Yakufu?
So for me, it's the PTDF scholarship.
Okay. So thank you very much. So diving into the first question that we're trying to answer, which programs do we apply to? What programs do we look out for? Who do we go with first now? Yeah, Brifa, can you just share some tips with what do you think we should consider before or when we are trying to choose programs to apply to? What are the things that should come to our minds when we're trying to choose these programs?
So before I chose artificial intelligence here, I wanted to do reservoir engineering. But then I thought to myself, I mean, it's one of those things where you have to think within and ask yourself if this is something you want to do. So it has to be something that you're passionate about. It has to be something that you want to do, not just because you're wanting to leave the country. So yeah, I'd applied for reservoir engineering when I applied for the PTDF scholarship. But then I thought to myself, and I was like, oh, you've already got an MSc in petroleum engineering, and this is where the world is tending towards. These are things that are being applied currently in the world. So why are you going to do an MSc in reservoir engineering again? So yeah, that's how I decided to say, oh no, I want to go into tech. I want to be able to do something that I can also apply in the oil and gas industry and outside of it. So that's how I decided to go study AI instead. Okay, very, very nice. Raji, you're currently in Stanford doing carbon capture and sequestration. Was that always the plan or something changed post-graduation?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so for me, right after school, I mean, I really did enjoy my degree in petroleum engineering, really did enjoy it. So it was finding a way to sort of incorporate my learnings from petroleum engineering to where the world was tending.
Okay.
And I think for a lot of people that have backgrounds in subsurface engineering, it's either they go into like carbon storage and sequestration, or they go into geothermal energy, or they go into hydrogen storage, and all this like new technologies that are coming up, but are like transferable skills from core oil and gas production. So that was, I mean, that was my line of thinking when I applied for the program. Yeah, so it was, I mean, just simply put it, I know I had core competencies in subsurface engineering, and then I was like, okay, so what do I use this skill to do? And yeah, then put it into carbon storage and sequestration.
Okay, yeah, that's very lovely. Thank you very much. Mr. Victor, can you hear me?
Yes.
So
okay,
yeah, go
ahead.
Okay. Do you have something to add to that?
For me, I actually changed fields. So I did philosophy for undergrad.
Okay.
Then after philosophy, I worked in the media for a while. And I thought I liked this thing called politics and international relations and international development. So I was conflicted with between studying philosophy for graduate studies or going to my newfound love, that's politics, international development. But I decided to go for the latter because I think I needed something more practical than the philosophy degree. So philosophy was nice, lots of critical thinking, lots of writing, and good communication skills from that degree. But I wanted to do something else, a little bit more hands-on and practical, because philosophy sometimes can get very theoretical, and people would ask you, okay, what's the modern relevance of this thing? There are lots of them, but it's just they're not very intuitive. So I decided to go for a degree that is not too far from philosophy, still in the social sciences, but it's a bit more practical. And that's why I applied for international development and Africa. But I must say that if you check the degree requirements or the applications requirements for that particular course I applied for, they said a BSc in a related discipline. And they mentioned the related disciplines. They mentioned international relations, sociology, human geography, and philosophy wasn't there. So my entry point was my work experience as a media personnel and a politics writer. So that's, I think the point here is that your work experience, if it deviates a little from your undergrad degree, might be your point of entry into a new, that's my own story.
Okay. Jemima. Right,
Okay.
did you then PhD petroleum, right? Was there a specific need for that PhD? Was it just to jackpot, or there was something you really wanted to study? What was the story behind that?
Okay, so for me, the progression you may notice is that I was gradually specializing in something. So chemical engineering is quite broad, so broad that you could see people working in manufacturing industry and the likes, process engineers and all that. And petroleum engineering is a branch. Actually, I think if ABU has not changed their curriculum, petroleum engineering is just one course you do in final year and that's it. So that was narrowing for me to go into an MSc in petroleum engineering. And during the petroleum engineering course, I realized that I was more interested in reservoir engineering. So that's kind of what led to the narrowing. And of course, reservoir engineering, I didn't just study reservoir engineering, I did the part that had to do with simulation. And I was applying coding in the work that I did. Not exactly because I had very strong coding skills before my PhD, but basically, I think my main gain from the PhD was the skills I developed in terms of coding, analyzing data and stuff like that. So for me, that was the path. But just to throw more into the question, I definitely appreciate what Yabrifa and Toby said, which is that in terms of programs, first you want to be passionate about the program you choose to study, because especially if you're doing a PhD, it's a long haul. So if you're not interested in it, you could drop off along the way if you don't have any interest at all in it. So it's very important that it's something you do want to study. And the other side to it is doing something that is relevant today, which I think touched on what Mr. Toby was saying, which is that for the Western countries, US, UK maybe, especially Europe, UK, these days to be in the petroleum field can be looked upon with bad eyes. Let me put it like that.
Yes,
because
that's correct.
This part of the world is turning towards green energy. And so you want to do something that you would still be relevant despite things going on around you. And so that's where things like data analysts roles, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and in this part of the world also, health, so public health, medical related courses. Those are programs I think people can latch onto. And don't forget, especially if you have interest in it. So yeah, that's just a little additional to make there.
Okay, so just a follow-up question, Jemima. You mentioned you used coding for your PhD program. What programming languages did you make use of? Just for people that are planning to do some research in petroleum engineering.
Yeah, so I did more of Python. More of MATLAB, and then Python.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for those that, well, MATLAB is a bit easier in my estimation because everything you need to do is within MATLAB. So to say, you don't need all those external libraries and all those kind of things, which is kind of what you have in Python. You need to call on external libraries, import at every time.
After how many centuries?
Please
okay,
continue.
so
Sorry.
In that sense, I started up with MATLAB, and I think that was why I strengthened my hands in coding, because it's basically was where I developed the thought process of transferring what you want to implement from your mind into computer language or into the language of the coding language, programming language you're using. And then subsequently, I was able to implement similar stuff with Python. And of course, Python is free. MATLAB is not free, so you'd need a license for MATLAB. Python is free and readily available. And I think popular these days also. So having skills in Python is very important these days. But yeah, those are the two languages I worked with.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, so what I'm gathering from everybody is that one of the very first key things to have is interest, genuine interest in the set program, right? So what happens? I have a very, because what happens when your BSc academic background doesn't entirely match the background you want to go for? I've had in some cases that admission committees kind of come through your transcript to look for certain courses if you have studied some other things. Would you say this is like a roadblocker or there's still a way around it? Yeah, briefers, especially because I see that you did artificial intelligence now. Your background being petroleum engineer, did it have any role to play? Did it affect in any way for your application? What exactly happened for that?
Okay, so to be sincere, I was very much worried when I started. In fact, because of that same reason, I had to speak to my personal tutor twice before I even started the program. Okay. So yeah, what I did was I knew that, well, aside the general things that we know about AI, I knew I didn't particularly know what it entailed, especially given that I wanted to apply to petroleum engineering. So what I started doing is, because I knew it was supposed to be a roadblock during the application process for admission. So I started taking courses online. I started learning, I picked up Python, I picked up Java, I started learning a couple of things. And while I was applying for admission, I put these things in my CV because I spoke to a couple of persons that worked in the school already. And then they said, oh, okay, aside you having a degree in this thing, because normally I'm supposed to have a BSc or something in computer science, not in petroleum engineering, to be going to study AI. But then with the skills I was able to gather just before applying for my admission, I put them in my CV to show that, yes, I can code. Yes, I've got an understanding of computer science. And then aside the new skills of coding and all that, I also showed the transferable skills from petroleum engineering that I already had. I could do reservoir simulation. I could do seismic interpretation. So those already showed that at least this person has like that ability to understand how the computer works. And then this person has also made efforts to learn how to code. So yeah, with that, I think it was one of the reasons why they considered allowing me to go on with the program. So I personally think that if you want to do a switch, you'd have to start gathering skills that are relevant to the new course that you're wanting to study, because no school wants you to come in and start struggling. They just, as much as we think that, oh, it's money they're after, they also want to be sure that they are bringing in the right students. So yes, that's the one thing I think you can do with things like that.
Oh, okay. So Deborah, follow-up question, please.
Yes.
How many AI programs did you apply to? Did you just apply to one and get it, or because everybody has a success story already? So I just want to understand, how easy was it?
So,
did you have to apply to a number of? Okay, yeah.
So as I said earlier, I initially applied to study reservoir engineering, my PTDF scholarship. So I'd known that I'd gotten the scholarship. So I didn't apply to, I just applied to, I wanted to study reservoir engineering in Erotwat. So immediately I had that change in decision. I just communicated to the person and said, oh, I'm not doing reservoir engineering again. I'm rather applying to study AI. The person asked if I had the relevant skills, which I added to my CV, and that was it. I didn't have to apply to like so many other schools because I would say I'd set my sight on Erotwat University to go to. So I just made sure to align. But then aside that, you could also apply to like so many different schools, given a different scenario. My scenario is quite distinct. So yeah, that's how I got mine. I just applied to Erotwat for AI and then I got it. Yes, I reached out to Imperial College at the time, but the admission process was over, so I couldn't get in.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to understand what really happened. Thank you for that. Oluwatobi, the same question, the academic background, I know, because I also studied petroleum engineering from Unilag, and now you're doing carbon capture. Do you think for a petroleum engineering major, a chemical engineering major, courses like that are very somewhat straightforward or easy for us to apply to? Does it make sense? Or you had to do some extra things, or it was sort of straightforward?
No, I mean, for petroleum engineering, carbon capture is just straightforward, to be honest. I mean, carbon capture is, if you could put it as modern day petroleum engineering, I think that's the way to put carbon capture and sequestration. And I mean, based off my experience, I would say for a lot of people, if you're trying to apply for an assistantship, or you're trying to get a funding from a professor or whatever, it's easier, I would say, to apply to something that you have background from. So if you had a degree in chemical engineering and it's transferable, I mean, chemical engineering is very broad, it's very, very transferable. You can apply to something that transfers knowledge from chemical engineering if you're trying to apply for an assistantship. I mean, now, if you're not applying for an assistant, because the idea behind an assistantship is you're going to come and do research. So if you don't have knowledge about it, no one is going to start teaching you the basics for you to deliver in your research. So it's just a given. But now that doesn't then mean that you cannot apply to something that you really want to study. I mean, in a lot of cases, when you're applying for external scholarships, like I think Dipri had said, PTDF, when you're applying for external scholarships, they are not necessarily expecting an obligation from you, an obligation in the sense of you have to do research or you have to teach, or there isn't that particular obligation. So for this scholarship, I believe there are some freeway, and all what they want to see is your interest and some transferable experience. I don't think a school in the US would take you to come and be a research assistant for artificial intelligence because you learned Python online. I mean, it's going to be a very, very magnificent Thanksgiving story if you got an assistantship because you learned Python online. It's not gonna happen, to be honest. So if you're applying for an assistantship, research or teaching, your best bet is to play your card with what you have and see if you can cash in on it. If you're applying to an external scholarship, maybe DAD, Chevening, PTDF, any external scholarships, then you don't have to limit yourself, because these people are just trying to see, are you passionate about this? Do you have interests with this? Do you have maybe related work experience, like I think Victor had mentioned? So if I'm to put scholarships in certain buckets, I think that's the way I'm going to group them. But to answer your question, in my own case, carbon capture, like I said, is modern day reservoir engineering. A lot of petroleum engineers are also transferring their skills in porous media to batteries. So I think, I mean, for some of us, we might fixate on the applications of the degree that we used and not necessarily the transferable skills. So petroleum engineering, it's forget about the petroleum and just think about what you're doing in it. You're doing porous medias, you're doing numerics, you're doing fluid phases and all of that. And it's really transferable these days in a lot of industries, like I had mentioned, and even batteries. I have a couple colleagues here doing research on batteries based off knowledge in porous media. So yeah, I'm going to say you can cash in on a scholarship based on the experience you have, and you can also cash in on a scholarship based on your passion. And then that's in the case of applying to external scholarships. But yeah.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you, Oluwatobi. So as regards what programs to apply, it's a gathering from everybody. Key thing to have generally is to have an interest, right? Have that interest, have a background that sort of ties to it. If you don't have the background and you're applying to general scholarships like PTDF and stuff, gather the required work experience, gather the skills, put all these things in place. If you want to do research assistantships like Raji just said, it's best to just play your cards right there. Go through, use your transferable skills from your background in school, right? Okay, so now we want to sort of move on to like the second bucket of question. This one now is about what schools do we look for? What schools do we look out to? How can we be strategic? Because there are so many schools, right? So many schools. Not all the schools are funded. Not all the schools are best for certain programs. So, Mr. Victor, are there any best practices you would like to share? Would you say there's a certain way to be strategic about selecting the schools you want to apply to as regards funding and the fit for your program?
Yeah, I think the first tool is to just follow the money. Go for where there is funding.
Okay.
Since you're not intending to self-fund yourself, so it means you have to go to places where they actually have opportunities for you. And there are actually lots of places as well with opportunities. So then you narrow down probably to things like the rankings of the university or the rankings of the department. It's interesting because some universities might be highly ranked, but the particular department you're going to at that university might not be well equipped. That's another thing. So you might want to put emphasis on not just the overall ranking of the university, but the ranking of that particular department and what they actually have to offer. So you do not want to have this big name and no content in the program you intend to do. So check the rankings. And then I think through referrals as well, probably somebody on LinkedIn, you see somebody doing quite well, writing good papers, that could inspire you to apply to a similar university as well. I think that's one, or even professors as well. Probably you go to a talk or you read an academic paper, then the professor shares his background, his department. You'll be like, yeah, I think I would like to study with this person. Our areas of interest align and things like that. So rankings of the university, ranking of the particular department, referrals based on friends, mentors, random strangers you see, but you like their profile, like what they're doing, and think you see yourself in their lab or in their departments as well. So that will work. And I think you want to also consider things apart from academics, things like, oh, can I stay in this country? Because a number of people might struggle in non-English speaking countries, for instance. So when I was studying in Germany, I actually liked the experience because I learned a new language. But I know a number of friends who struggled staying there. I don't mind staying back in Germany. It's just that I got a better offer in the UK for a PhD, even though my university in Germany wanted me to continue there for a PhD. But I know a number of people who are like oh, Germany will not work for me because I don't like this language thing, this non-English speaking things. So this is like an extra thing you might want to consider. Other people also consider migration status. Like Canada has become like a hotcake these days because it gives you PR while you're still a student. So a number of students run there because I think it's also good for them for their post-study aspirations. So the environment you stay in, a number of countries actually have a bad reputation in the way they treat international students. A number of them, like in Eastern Europe, yeah, one of the countries presently at war. But I understand why students also go there because of low fees, sorry for self-funded students. But a number of countries there, I think you should do your research very well because there are lots of media coverage on victimizations of non-white students and things like that. So you want to have all those things in mind while you're selecting. So the academic part, like rankings, fits, that you check what the professors are doing there and how you fit into it, and referrals from friends, for mentors. And then you go to the non-academic side, like how do you make friends, language, weather, things like that might also help. Yeah, that's it for my own corner. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Vic. That's a very robust answer, right? Mr. Diabrief, do you have anything to add? Because you mentioned you really wanted a what? Was there any particular reason for that, or just?
So with my interest with Erotwat, it was because of how good their petroleum engineering is. I think they are well ranked when it comes to petroleum engineering. And I remember back then in undergrad, a lot of the books we used then were from Erotwat University. So I knew as a matter. So I wouldn't put it in perspective as to me studying AI there, but like I said, it's because of the engineering that I applied to Erotwat first. So it's important to know not just how good a school is for a particular course you're going to study. Is that school good enough to give you the knowledge that you require? For certain specializations, how good is that school? And then two, the overall ranking of the school matters because you want to come out and be able to say, oh, you went to this school and all.
A quick one, Mr. Toby. I know that you got a number of offers, right? I think I saw one of your LinkedIn page, and which means you applied to a number of schools. How did you get information about these schools? Did you have to attend? Because I've seen some schools organize the open day events. Did you have to attend any of these events, or information from the website was enough? Or I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I definitely do. I mean, thinking about it now, it was actually it was work. It didn't just come. It didn't just come easy. So I think for me as a then, I kind of grouped things in different buckets. So I looked at it like this. And I was applying. So they were like, okay, what schools would I want to go to that I will Cambridge, I put Stanford. I just put those schools in that bucket. Okay, you know, these are the A-list schools. If I go to these schools, I can brag about it for the rest of my life. I mean, no, not because of anything, just because I went to these schools, right? I just put it there. And then and the other bucket was, okay, what schools actually are very good in the program I'm applying to? And that was University of Texas at Austin. That was Penn State University in the US. That was Heriot-Watt in the UK. So, I mean, and then the other thing was, and it's funny how, as a then, I was also interested in engineering management, which is totally different from oil and gas or petroleum or subsurface engineering or even core engineering. And I also like applied to some certain schools in that bucket, right? Applied to Dartmouth College, applied to some schools in Canada. So just to answer your question, it was strategic in the sense that I had different schools in different buckets and what they represented. But also it was also hustle, because I mean, you have strategy, but you also have the hustle. You see something on LinkedIn, oh, there's funding somewhere. You report your application essay, you write, you just find a way to make the essay fit into what you're trying to write. So I'm not going to make it as if everything was very strategy. It was strategy and it was also inshallah vibes. It was a combination of both of them. So it's not an easy process. I'm not going to lie to anybody here, but you have to think about it. You have strategy on one end, but you also have the hustler vibes on the other end. Any information you see, any whisper you hear, you have your essays, you have the whole thing ready, and you're just shooting applications in a lot of places, to be honest. Yeah, so that's how I approached it when I did it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Toby. Quick one, are you not proud of best of first choice? Because you're mentioning Stanford. Lag was in the picture, right? But let's just move on. Just move it up. So what everybody's saying is, as regards choosing schools, it's best to be strategic. It's best to know what you want. You want to go to a school where, post-graduation, you'll be proud of where you went to. Is this school highly ranked for the particular program that I want to attend? You need to have the hustle in you. It's not easy, like they have mentioned. You would have to, as somebody said, you laugh the first choice. But yeah, you have to be strategic. You have to have like different buckets in your mind. I also know people that even have like massive Excel sheets and keeping databases of all these things. Okay, so now moving on to, so we have discussed how to choose the programs we want to apply to, how to choose the schools. Now the next question is, what are the requirements? So in my head, I know I want to do petroleum engineering, I want to do data analytics, I want to go to schools like Stanford, schools like Imperial. What are the requirements? Dr. Jemima, how would you say having a publication is important for your master's program or your PhD program? Because I know many of us are undergrads, supervisors are always trying to pressure us to publish our works, right? Would you say if it's something we can do, we should do, or it's not very necessary?
All right, thank you. So I'm just going to say something quick about the previous questions, which is, I think I agree with everything everybody else said. The only thing I'm adding is to also consider the professors. Well, if you're doing a PhD, consider the professors. So you're going to be working with this person for 3 to 4 years or maybe more. You want to try to gauge if you can work with the person. I have had colleagues that had problems with their supervisors and they had to drop off because the problems escalated to other things. And how can you get that information? Some universities have a track record of people that worked with these professors. So you can look into that, see if you can chat some of these people up on LinkedIn. You could find Nigerians or Africans if you think you want to hear direct from somebody of similar background as yourself, and just try to gauge how the person works with their students. At least that also prepares you on what to expect when you get there. But just to put it out there that your professor is very critical to your postgraduate program. So that out. The question you asked was around requirements, right?
Yeah, publication,
Okay.
like having a published paper.
Yeah. So if I'm not wrong, the UK rule is that you don't even need a paper to have a PhD. So you can finish your PhD without having a paper here in the UK. That indirectly follows the fact that without a paper, you can get admission in the UK. So, but again, if I link it back to what I was saying before about professors, some professors are at that level where they are full, like they don't care much about getting a paper in their career anymore. They've had so much more. So if you're working with somebody that is like that, then chances are the person may not push. You may have to be the one that will push for some of those kind of things post getting the program, the application of the degree or whatever it is. But yeah, that should also guide. If it's something you hope to get whilst you're in the process of the PhD, then look for someone that you think is itchy for papers, is churning out stuff quite frequently, and then that can help. But yes, UK wise, to the best of my knowledge, it's not required that you have any papers. Personal experience, I had 0 papers before coming to the UK, and yeah, well, AUST, where I did my master's, would publish our project thesis online. So if you checked online, you should find my project thesis for my MSc. But okay, I also remember my professor telling me to send a copy to her during the application process. So again, I think they use that to gauge your English, to see if you have what it takes to write and to communicate in that level, and also to gauge the areas of your strength. So yes, there's all of that. But yeah, I had no papers, and I had my papers in the last 2 years of my PhD also. So yeah, PhD, yeah, UK wise, that's what I know. Maybe someone else can tell you more from the US or other place perspective.
Yes, Mr. Toby, you're in the US. Did you have your paper published before you applied for your master's program? Do you think that helped in any way for you?
Oh no, I don't have a paper.
Oh.
I didn't have. Short answer, I didn't have a paper. I mean, it really depends, right? So for a lot of these things, to be honest, a lot of people don't know what exactly helped. I mean, maybe sometimes okay, let's say, for example, you send a cold email to a professor and you sort of reference your paper, then that could probably help your admission because you publish a paper that is related to what they're doing. But other times, a paper could also show that, okay, you've conducted research and you know how to do research. I mean, in any level. And I think sometimes we we might tend to maybe overemphasize on the word publishing. If you sell your undergraduate, I mean, every Nigerian, I assume, does undergraduate final year projects. If you can sell it well, you could just call it research, to be honest. And you can just say you publish it in your school magazine or something like that. I mean, it's publishing, right? So what I'm just saying is sometimes we like, you might want to overemphasize on, oh, I need to publish in this particular journal or whatnot. But more often than not, especially if you're coming in as a master's student or maybe even first year PhD, no one is expecting that much high expectations from you, and you don't need to put too much pressure on yourself. Just sell what you have as well as you can. And that's just what I would say.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Toby. Mr. Victor, in your keynote speech, you briefly mentioned about statements of purpose, personal statement, personal essays. Could you please just be a bit specific about the certain things that should be in a person's SOP or in a person's personal statement?
Okay, I think usually for most universities, they give you like a prompt of what they want to see as well. So it's good not to neglect that and just go on your own way and start writing. So make sure you keep to the prompts. But generally speaking now, for what applies to most universities, I think, at least the ones I've seen, is why are you applying for this course? And I think this question is about how does it align with your background and then your future goals? Then why this particular department, why this university? Then they want you to make them feel special. So there are lots of universities out there doing something similar. So why do you want to come here? And then you show that you've done your own research. You've like gone to their website, see their key areas of strength, know their rankings. They mention particular professors and the research they're doing there. You could mention like a paper you read from a professor that's inspired you applying to them or that relates to your previous background. And then things like leadership skills might want to come in as well, like soft skills that would help you be a good grad student, a good lab member if you're working in the lab. I've been working in the lab before, your conflict management skills, leadership skills. You might want to put that there. Then after your studies, what do you intend to do? A number of universities might also want to know that, okay, when you get these skills, are you going to stay in academia? Are you going to research? Are you starting your own business? Generally, are you going to become a politician? A number of people ask me, oh, you're studying politics, probably want to become a politician, things like that. So universities also want to know what you're going to do with the skills you learn. So I think these are the basic questions, if you ask me. Why you are coming here? How does it align with your background, future aspirations? What is different about our university? What led you here? I think those are the basic questions. But I must say, follow the prompts given. And if after the prompts there are still spaces, then you can add more things to it. But make sure you follow the prompts if they give prompts on what they want to see in your letters of motivation or your statement of purpose, as the case may be. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think that pretty much sums it up. How does it relate with your background? What are your future plans, your career paths, or career ambitions, and all of that? Now, I know that one of the requirements is also letter of recommendations, right? And they are briefer. How do you think? How do you choose referees, right? Is it just what are the things you should look out for before you reach out to a lecturer or somebody you have worked with before? What exactly should you look out for when you are choosing referees? Is it just about the level of lecturer? Is it just about looking out for professors or people that know you more, have seen the things that you have done? Also, is it good practice to write a draft and then share with this best practice?
So I think during the keynote speech, Mr. Victor spoke on that, and I wouldn't particularly say the level of lecturer. I don't know, because usually I have a tendency to reach out to people that I know me, that can say who I am even if I'm not there. And these are people that I reach out. I know I keep in contact with. They know what my progress is at the time. They know the things I'm up to. They can easily write things that make sense about me. I don't know about level, although these people too, I would say, are quite big. So what I try to do is usually for 2 referees, I try to have one person from the academia and then one person from the industry that I think is relevant to whatever I'm applying to. I usually just do that as a rule of thumb for myself. And then writing drafts for them too, I think is necessary, because as much as they know you, these people are usually busy people. They wouldn't be able to, or they may not have the time to always sit and write exactly what you think. Or for one, you're the one applying to what you're applying to. You're the one that would know exactly what that thing requires. So writing a draft for them that's in line with what you want at that time. If you're applying for a scholarship or if you're applying for anything else, you know exactly what the requirements are. You know what the school or whoever you're applying to is looking for. So if you write a draft to them, it will be easy to help them know where you're tending that letter to go towards, and then help you to like structure it in that line. So yeah, as I've said, I don't know about the level of the person, but then it's also important to be able to, as I said, Victor talked about it, to be able to also tell them how you want this letter to go, this recommendation to go. You're not telling them what to write. You're not the one submitting what is being written, but then you're also helping them to align to a particular thing that you're applying for. So yeah, recommendation letters are important. The people that write them for you are also important. It should be people that know you, should be people that are willing to say good things about you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. At this point, there are so many questions we still have to go through, so I will try to be as fast as I can. I would also let us start. I just want to remind our participants that if you have questions, please keep putting them. I've seen one. If you have questions, please just put them in the chat box. I'll get to them in due time. Now, so other questions surrounding requirements. I know GRE, IELTS, all those exams and all. And there are a number of them. Raji, for your master's program, did you have to, because I know these days it's being waived a lot. Did you have to have GRE? What would you say is the just best tips to prepare for the exam, timeline-wise, between post-graduation or before graduation to submissions and the likes?
Yeah. So I had to take the GRE. The GRE is not waived for every school. So some schools would waive the GRE, some schools would not waive the GRE. I think a lot of schools waived the GRE during COVID, but I mean, they may be bringing back the GRE pretty much very soon. But I would just say, as a rule of thumb, you don't want to be limited by GRE. You don't want to be like, oh, I can't apply to this school because I don't have a GRE, or I can't apply to this school because I don't have a TOEFL, especially if you're looking at North America, US, Canada. So write the 2 exams, that's what I would say. And then if you do not do so well and the school doesn't require the GRE, then you don't tell them what you got, right? I mean, you don't need it, so you don't need to know what I got. And if you do well, then you can always brag with what you got. So it wouldn't hurt you to just take the 2 exams. That's on one end. Now on the other hand is, how long does it take to prepare for the GRE? I would really say it really depends on, first, when you get the GRE, take the exam first. Like, don't practice, don't do anything, don't read the books, just take the exam. I mean, you might have a very good math background, because the GRE is really math. It's not like calculus. It's not differentiation. It's not integration. It's just math. I believe that a secondary school SS2 students might do better on the GRE than a university professor, even, because it's really basic aptitude math. So if you take the GRE and you have a very good first attempt, then you can probably give yourself maybe 3 months to hone in on your skills and perfect it and push your scores to the maximum as much as possible. If you take it on the first attempt and you don't have a very good score, then I would say be honest with yourself, to be honest. Like, just be honest with yourself and give yourself as much time to get the concepts right. GRE is an exam that you can practice and optimize for. Like, you do it a couple times, you get better at it. So my answer to how long does it take to practice for the GRE is not straightforward. It really depends on everybody. But what I would say is take the test without practicing, without reading, see what you got, and then that should give you an idea of how long it will take you to practice for it. But for the English, I would say a lot of us Nigerians might struggle with it, especially with the grammar. I mean, it's not speaking. GRE's English is not speaking. It's very reasoning based. So it's not like test of grammar or test of, there's test of spelling, but it's very reasoning based. So I would say a couple people might struggle with that than they struggle with the math. But it all comes to taking it first, seeing how well you do, and then estimating how much practice you will need based off of that. Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I feel like GRE is a very good leveler. I mean, when I say leveler, I mean, I've seen students that had like 2-1 perform way better in the GRE than a first class student, because it just tests pure intelligence. Like, it's not concept based. It's not what the lecturer taught you in class. It's just pure intelligence. So if you feel like you didn't even have a very good maybe GPA from school, maybe you didn't get a first class, maybe you got a 2-1 or whatever, I feel like a GRE is a very good way to supplement your case, to make a case for yourself that you are intelligent. That's what you're trying to tell them. It doesn't matter whether you understood what your lecturers were teaching or whether they taught it in a particular way. The GRE is just a general exam for everybody. But yeah, that's I mean, I hope I didn't go off point and I actually did answer the question.
No. That's a very brilliant answer. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So as regards the requirements, we have discussed SOP, we have discussed having letters of recommendations, best way to pick your referees. We just discussed the exams that are needed, GRE, TOEFL, IELTS, and all of that. So I want us to dive a bit into funding, right? I would want to start with Jemima, because I think you mentioned your scholarship was PTDF, yourself and Brifa. Is that correct, Jemima?
I got PTDF, but I didn't use it.
Well, you didn't use it. Okay, so you got PTDF and you also got it. What other one did you get?
The professor's grant.
Professor's grant. Okay. Okay. Could you just walk us through how you got that professor's grant? The professor's grant. Yeah. Can you just walk us through how you got that? How you were able to land that grant?
Okay, so when I started to look for, I think one of the things that drove my search for a school or program was linked to professors. So I was reaching out to professors into schools I was interested in, again, based on different buckets, as Raji said. And some of them will come up upfront and tell you they are not accepting students, either because they are emeritus or something like that, and all that. When I got to this, of course, some of them will not reply you at all, so you need to move on. And in a way, you need to kind of space some of these things so that you give them enough time at least to get back to you, so that you don't have conflicting. They meet themselves every day. Imperial College has something where we do morning coffees every morning, so they probably meet themselves every day in coffee, and your talk could come up. So you don't want to basically cause a scene where you are double dating or something. But basically, when I got this professor, she told me upfront that she didn't have funding, and I told her that was fine. And so I decided to apply to PTDF and look for funding on my own. I applied to other scholarships within the university. There was a total scholarship within Imperial, but I didn't get that. But one thing I kept doing was keeping her up to date on the things I was trying and all that. So yeah, 1 year passed. deferred the admission. PTDF was delayed in that year. I think that was 2017. PTDF was delayed that year. So by the time they came for the interviews and all that, it was already getting to October when universities start. And so I think I read, well, PCDF came in and I decided I didn't want to go to the UK anymore. I'd rather use PCDF to go to the US or Canada. So again, I started searching for schools in those countries. And I did get a place in the US, Penn State University, I think somebody mentioned that earlier. And came back to this professor and told her that, okay, I want to defer. I didn't tell her I had PTDF actually, but I told her I wanted to defer again. That was going to be the second year. And then she came up and told me that she actually has funding for this project from another company. And she was wondering, will I be interested? So I told her to send me documents just to see what it was about. And that was the project I worked on for my PhD. I saw it, it looked interesting, it looked good. I think for me, the extracurricular reasons why I wanted to study abroad was around jobs. I think I continued to study this that far because I was looking for a job that was good enough and it wasn't coming. So at that point, part of my own calculations for even wanting, part of my calculations were, if I did a project that was funded by another oil company, they will be involved in the research. It's a way of already pitching yourself for them job-wise by the time you finish and all that kind of stuff. So that was some of the contributing factors to why I chose the project she had. And of course, like I said before, there was also the prospect of my coding improving during the course of the study. It was reservoir engineering, which was what I wanted and all that. So yeah, she sent the portfolio of the work to me. I liked it. And that was how I ended with PTDF and US and stuck to her. The funny thing is, my logic, again, when God is doing these things, you don't know how. My logic didn't pay off because this oil company was not as interested during the research process, but they already had the documents I signed when I started already kind of covered me for the entire time of the study. So there was no way they could back down on providing the funds once we started. So yeah, that covered me all through. But yes, scholarship wise, I think be upfront, let them know. If they don't have funding, let them know that you're looking for something. Keep them up to date so that it's not like you just dumped them somewhere and went doing something else. Keep them up to date, let them know that you're interested, you're actively working towards it. And yeah, maybe funding can turn up and then they think or remember you because you've kept in touch with them.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Quickly, Mr. Victor, do you have anything to add as regards that, identifying professors with funding, how to send cold emails? Are there things that, because some of us have not sent any cold email before, so are there any tips you would just want to share?
Yeah, I think I said briefly in introduction that be careful when it comes to cold emails. For scholarships like the Commonwealth, Chevening, DAT, there's no need to contact anybody in the department. Probably want to keep a rapport and talk to them, but there's no need. But if you're looking for assistantships or even PhD supervision, either in the UK, US, wherever it is based, I think you need some kind of a rapport with the professor. I might need to send a cold email. And I often tell people, if you're not sure, you can always contact somebody as well. Either the department secretary or the head of department and clarify that, do I need to contact somebody in the first place? So they require you to contact professors. However, there was a university I found in the US, I can't remember the name, and they said you must not contact any professor beforehand. It was written clearly there in the applications requirements. So it's good to read these things while you're trying to apply. And if it is not stated, then ask questions at the end of the day. Quick thing about funding as well. I think money matters when you're doing your studies, either for a master's or especially for a PhD, because it's very long, very stressful. You do not want money to be another problem when it comes to a PhD. So you want to know how much they are paying, like an estimate, then know the city you'll be staying and how much you'll be paying for things like rent, utilities. Are you paying taxes? For instance, here in the UK, you don't pay taxes with your stipend. And that's one good thing about the UK. Another thing about the UK is there's no reciprocity. So you don't have to work as a research assistant or a teaching assistant. So you might just get your stipend every month without working for the department. So it means you can do something else, because international students are allowed to work 20 hours. So you can do something else, either within or outside the department. So in my own case, I'm working as a teaching assistant, not because my scholarship requires me to do that, but because I have 20 hours doing nothing. I'm like, why not make more money with the 20 hours? So it makes more financial sense. And I must accept that was one of the reasons why I chose the UK over the US. So while applying for a PhD, I got into AU Washington, University of American University, Washington, DC. The stipend was based on the research assistantship. So my 20 hours essentially was being traded for tuition waiver and living stipend. But in the UK, there was no quid pro quo. I didn't trade my 20 hours for anything. I was assured of a monthly stipend. So it made lots of financial sense to actually just stay in the UK. I'm going to be a millionaire overnight, but I don't have to like stress about sources of income, if that makes sense. That will concept teaching assistantship and say, now focus just on my research and I have not look for other sources of income. I know I have a number of classmates who are just on the stipend for their PhD and do not teach because they claim it's just too stressful. They just want to concentrate on their PhD and graduate. So you have the alternative in the UK, and that's why I think that's one of like the attractive options why the UK is attractive, or the comparative advantage of staying in the UK. So that's my own take.
Thank you very much. Mr. Yabrifa, your program was funded fully by PTGF, right? Is that correct?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yes. What was the application like? How did you land that? I have a very good question. Is there any quota for people from oil producing states? Because I saw that somewhere. I'm not sure, as I want to just push that.
Oh, well, I about the quota, I don't know if it's official that there's one, but then when I was awarded the scholarship, I looked through the list and checked out like how many persons from how many states, and I saw that it differed by like 1 or 2 persons more, something like that. So perhaps there's a quota thing, but it's not much. It's like 1-2 persons extra, like per state or something like that. Well, as I said, I don't know exactly how it's calculated or anything like that. It's a matter of personal, what I saw on the website. But
Okay,
then
yeah,
the application. The application process. So why I picked PTDF scholarship to apply? I think it was the only scholarship I applied to at the time, and I picked it because of how flexible it was, or it is, because, well, for one, PTDF scholarship allows you to get the scholarship, and then you can then apply for admission after getting the scholarship. So there was kind of that ease that I gave, which is why I picked it. But overall, the process wasn't particularly stressful. I think the first criteria was your personal statements. That was like the first thing that they looked at before the whole shortlisting process. And then next stage was the interview, which was also very straightforward. It was just a matter of how you presented yourself. They had like a scoring criteria, which I got to find out before. These are like the things that help people with scholarships. So I got to find out that there's a scoring process. So I was able to like prepare myself in line with that. And then I'm also going to talk about the thing of whether publications are important or not. So I came to, well, I would say at the time I had no publication yet, but then I found out that that's like one of the criteria for PTDF scholarship. So there's a scoring system, and then having a publication allows you to meet or to get certain scores, which I think if anybody has a publication or is wanting to get publication, they should get it, because I feel like eventually it might just be important. But as I said, for me, I did not have one, but there were other areas that maybe I would have done well in that could have covered for that. But I mean, why not get all the points if you can? So yeah, it was a straightforward process, got scholarship, they ended up sponsoring everything and all that. So yeah, that's about PTDF scholarship. And the thing is, even the scoring criteria is in line with what Mr. Victor said, the whole making sure that you put your best foot forward, you make sure that your SOP is outstanding, you make sure that you highlight all your achievements, everything that you feel is necessary to getting a scholarship, you put them there and make sure that you're able to sell yourself essentially during the interview stage. So yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Toby, this is for the US now. We always hear teaching assistantship, research assistantships. What really is the difference? What's the similarity? How do you bag one for MSc? Is this something that you choose which you would eventually do, or the school actually gives it out when you have gotten the admission?
Yeah. For the most part, it varies. It varies between, say, this is what happens in the US, because, for example, most schools wouldn't fund master's students. Most schools. So sometimes if you're a master student and you get funded, you're lucky, because a lot of schools might not want to fund a master student. Now, what's the difference between a research assistantship and a teaching assistant? So a research assistant is literally doing research, but contributing to the professor's research. So you're doing research. I mean, if you read a paper, you can see like 3 names on that paper, right? So when you're a research assistant, your name is going to be the first name, and then probably the professor you're working with is probably going to be the second name or the third name. But that's the whole point of being a research assistant. If you're a teaching assistant, you don't have to do research. So the only thing you have to do is to organize tutorials sometimes, grade classes. Yeah, that's it. Just organize tutorials and grade classes. Now, more often than not, I've seen here, I can't speak generally for the US, but I've seen in Stanford that a lot of teaching assistantships go to US citizens. Yeah. And then, I mean, I do actually have some Nigerian friends that are teaching assistants, but there are not as many as the ones that are research assistants. So a lot of people that are teaching assistants are usually US citizens. Some people actually also get teaching assistantships after coming in. So you could come in, fund yourself if you have the money, and then get a teaching assistantship maybe in your second year. So you don't necessarily have to do research. And it's a lot of people eventually get those assistantship positions. But if you're a research assistant, then you are actually doing research. So your let's say your MS thesis is also contributing to the professor's research, and then you get your stipend based off of that. But if you're a teaching assistant, then you don't need to do any research. You just do tutorials, you mark scripts, and that's it.
James, he says for US research or graduate assistantship, will the applicant have to sponsor the visa, accommodations, and other expenses before starting the role? What is your advice, Raji? Did you get that?
Sponsor, you have to pay your visa fees at the embassy. For your accommodation, not necessarily, because you would be paid by the department. Like you're not coming to work for free. So the idea here is, out of the money you will be paid, then you can pay for your accommodation. So I think the only fee that you would probably have to incur is your visa application fee and your flight tickets. Yeah, you would have to incur those fees yourself. But more often than not, once you land here, I think and maybe your initial allowance, the money you need to hold before you get here and they start paying you. But I feel like once they start paying you, then you can pay for your accommodation and just live a comfortable life.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Time is not on our side, but we still have a few questions that I want us to touch Mr. Victor, I think you initially mentioned something about having an academic CV. What exactly is different? What's different between an academic CV and your regular resumes and CVs? What are the things that are expected to be in that CV?
It might be more of a structural issue than a vast difference. For instance, at the moment, I've been interested in applying for industry jobs, and I'm still using the same CV but with a different structure, if that makes sense. So you want to highlight in an academic CV the academic things, like the degree you got, some of the modules you took in your undergrad, or if you have the master's already, probably the grade you got. If you have like seminar presentations, conferences you attended, things like if you have a publication as well. So those academic things should come first, I think, because it's an academic CV, and relevant work experience as well that are quite related to the course you're applying for, and things like probably quantitative skills, qualitative skills. So recently I got into quantitative politics, and in quantitative politics you need lots of knowledge in things like R, Stata, and the rest of you want your selectors and selection committees to see. So I think for an industry job, for instance, people like write like what they call it, like a quotation, start their CV with a quotation or something. I don't think that is actually necessary for an academic CV, if you ask me. Most times what I do is I try to mirror the CV of the person in the industry I'm trying to apply to. So if it's academia, check if I can see a CV of somebody working in that company and see if I can mirror it. And most times, most professors have their CV on their website. So you could just use the same format, if that makes sense. So you give them what they already are used to. So just adjust your CV. It's more of a structural thing if you ask me as well, whether you're in the industry, academia, just rearrange some things at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I believe searching on Google will also be very helpful for that, right? Yeah, correct. Okay.
Yes,
so
exactly.
we're rounding up. Just a few questions that I just want to ask. Mr. Yabrifa, would you say it is a good practice to share your application to somebody else to read before submitting? Do you think it's good to just have a couple more eyes look through it before submitting, or just go with your guts?
Oh, as a matter of fact, as many eyes as you can, because there's the thing about writing something and thinking that it's okay until you give someone else to read, and then they are able to see a couple of things that you may have missed out on. So yes, it's definitely important to give somebody to review what you've written. I mean, you never know what's inside someone could find and tell you to add that would make sense to your CV. And aside giving it to our peers, it's also important to give it to people that are ahead of us, people that are experienced in these areas of applying for things like this, and then allowing them to help us review it. So just in case we've missed out on anything, or just in case there's anything they feel like will be relevant, they'll tell you. And then aside that too, there's grammatical errors that you could have missed out on without saying. So if you can get like things like Grammarly, if you can get people to review these things, then go ahead to do it by all means.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Jemima. So there's many of us have this, what's the word now? Predisposition that PhD, most people that leave PhD finally or most times end up in academia, right? And I know that you're in the industry right now. Would you say your PhD program had an industry relevance? That's why you are currently in the industry, or it's just a matter of past personal branding?
Well, my experience is that in the US and UK, they don't see the PhD the way we see it back home. So you can have a PhD here and go into industry. Doesn't matter so much. The other advantage you have is that you can also stay in academia, which is good for you. As a matter of fact, people finish PhDs here at the age of 25. So it doesn't make so much difference for them here. Personally, well, in my specific job, it doesn't make too much difference right now. But in the long run, you get these skills and experiences from doing a PhD that you can bring into your job that can make you outperform other people that you come in with similar, at similar levels, can we put it like that? Again, because I could start a job with someone that has just an undergraduate degree, and I have a PhD. I could start the job again with someone that has a degree maybe in physics and they are doing a job in reservoir engineering. Whereas I have not just done a PhD in reservoir engineering, I also have a background in petroleum engineering. So basically, the ease and speed of me blending into my role and performing would be different from that other person. So that's why I say in the long run, the skills and experiences you have help you outperform or help you progress faster, better, be more recognized and all whatnot in your role. But I think as far as this side of the world is concerned, many industry jobs, they are not too keen. It's the skills you bring into your job. They're not too keen on what the level of degree it is that you bring into your job. But then if you want to stay in academia, obviously, you have to have some of those skills. And I think I should also put it out there that even in academia, in this part of the world, if you're going into teaching, it's slightly different from if you're going into research. So I think there's a special certification you need if you're going through the teaching route. And you can actually stay in academia, a doctor and all that, but you don't do any research. So again, it's important to have an idea of some of the things you have in mind going forward. But yeah, hopefully I answered the question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. So we are out of time. Unfortunately, we still have a few more questions, but we want to just be conscious of other people that have other engagements, right? So at this point, if you could please just share the slide. I would like to say thank you to our panelists and our keynote speaker for joining us. We have a few, but I already passed the Q&A. Now I would like to call on Mr. Chinenye to just give the vote of thanks so that we can end that program.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tosin, for this wonderful anchoring of this session. Thank you, our panelists, and thank you all the participants on this this program. I guess it's been very enlightening. I think even from my side, I've learned a lot of things from diverse perspectives that the panelists have brought to the table. Just to add, what I would like to put on the table is that for future aspiring scholarship recipients that will be planning on going to read a course, I think the first thing to really imbibe is you need to have a passion for what you want to do. Choose a course that you personally believe in and tailor your scholarship around that. I don't think it's any use getting a scholarship to do what you don't want to do. That might be not so helpful at the long run. So the panelists have laid out different aspects, different tips for you to be able to use to achieve these objectives. I think it's just for us to build on this. If there are further questions or clarifications that anybody will be needing, you can as well just reach out to the people on the group that would help in getting you the answers as quickly as possible. So again, thank you everybody for making our time to come for this session. We thank our able leadership in the person of Mrs. Priscilla. We thank all the people that have put together this session. We are very glad that this session has come and it's been very enlightening. Thank you everybody for coming again. Thank you. To you,
thank you very much, Mr. Chinenye. Moving on. Audion, next slide, please. So just a quick announcement. SPE Lagos has an upcoming webinar on the 15th of February, as you can see on the slide. The topic is win-win negotiation. Please plan to attend. In addition to that, we also have some upcoming events, impact of AI, ML, and data science on your career. Those of us that are sort of diverted into tech, please plan to attend this. D&I week is February 22nd to 25th of 2023. Plan to attend, and what we have been talking about, SPE Lagos at 50 celebrations will be holding through March 24th to 26th, 2023. Next slide, please. Yes, so SPE Lagos's own scholarship award is still ongoing. We're still gathering. We're still gathering donations. You can reach out to any one of us via LinkedIn or our email address if you would want to sponsor or you have anybody that wants to sponsor. Those of us that are SPE members, if you check your email address, I'm sure you must have been seeing daily email broadcasts sent to you. If you have not renewed your membership, try to renew your membership today so as to not lose the benefits that you're currently or that SPE has to offer. Next slide. So at this point, So please quickly connect with SPE Lagos section. Like you have seen, and like many of you know, we have so many events that are ongoing throughout the year. Connect with us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, follow us on IG, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel. This video is being, this session is currently being recorded and should be posted on our YouTube channel. So in case you want to just review some of the YouTube channel, connect, follow, and share to stay informed with our past and future events. If you have any inquiries on SPE as it is registration, membership renewal, please, you can make a screenshot of this quick so that you know the certain people and individuals to reach out to. If you also want to know the membership benefits, there's a website written on the bottom right for you to just visit to see all the benefits that you have. And lastly, I want us to just end the session by having a quick photo session. So we like to always have this where a participant can share. So if I could just indulge all of us to please turn on our videos so that we could just make a screenshot and, you know, end the events during that. So please, can we just quickly turn on our videos? Quick. Yes, I'm seeing lovely faces. I can see lovely faces. Or are you going to make the screenshot on your end?
Yes, I'll make the screenshot from my end. But if you can,
Okay.
just do it as a backup. Thank you.
Okay.
No, it's okay. I'll make it from my end. I'll make it from my end.
Okay, please do that. Please do that. So if we want just a few more people to share their videos. For those of us that are SPE members, we always like to, you know that we like to always have thumbs up in our video, but that's not compulsory. But okay, I think we could just make the screenshots. So lastly, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody that has joined us today. I'm super grateful to our participants, extremely grateful to our panelists. They are joining in from different parts of the world and they are taking out of their time to join us today. Thank you very much. Connect with us on our social media pages. You can watch this video again on YouTube, our YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Goodbye and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you. Odell, I hope you took the screenshot.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so yeah, so then we are good. So this marks the end of our event. Thank you very much, guys. You can now log off now. Thank you.